Welcome to University Television Presents. I'm your host, Anna Silver, and today my guest is Gordon Jones, the Dean of the College of Innovation and Design here at Boise State. And Gordon, I'd just like to thank you for coming today.
Thanks, Anna. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to talk about your background. You were actually the founding director at the Harvard Innovation Lab, and then you were recruited here in 2015 to be the inaugural dean at the College of Innovation and Design. Could you tell me about that journey and then some of your background?
Sure. So, I mean, I've had a career that's taken me to a number of different locations and with different employers and in different situations. The real common theme of my career has been really about unlocking opportunity inside organizations. Another theme that's been very close to me is a love of higher education. It was in 2010 that Harvard had hired me as the inaugural director for a new concept they had, which was this idea of an innovation lab. What it really was this idea that where can we bring experiential learning to the curriculum for the benefit of students at Harvard. Perhaps there was a little bit of a concern that there was more theory going on in the classroom than there was actual practice. There was, if you've seen the movie The Social Network, you might recall a scene in which Mark Zuckerberg, or the actor portraying Mark Zuckerberg, was penalized for actually, I would argue, attempting to apply the idea that he had learned in the classroom in the form of what ultimately became Facebook, but that was frowned upon culturally, and yet Harvard recognized in 2010 this is actually integral to learning, and it's quite valuable to a student's experience. It also was about bringing cross-disciplinary learning together. We're in a world today where, frankly, life is interdisciplinary, and there are times when it's helpful to focus on one particular area, but I think most institutions hopefully recognize the value of bringing together with folks with all different backgrounds to try to address problems. The Harvard Innovation Lab was about letting students run with their own ideas born out of the classroom, the dorm room, or friendships, and really let that be a part of their education. Doing that experience made me aware of a number of things that are going on in higher education that got me really interested and much more open to a wider perspective on what's going on in universities and colleges nationwide. One of them in particular is affordability. We are in a time and a place where the cost of attending university or college as a proportion of a family's paycheck is much higher than it's been in the past history. And we've encouraged everybody to go to university. It's been sort of a phenomenon since post-World War II, where we've bought into the idea that everybody should be considering looking at going to university. So we have affordability now with large groups of people. And we've seen issues with that. Student debt is at its highest level than it's ever been. And that's an issue that I saw that went beyond the Harvard Innovation Lab. I also saw where is technology and how is technology being used today and what is it going to mean for higher education. We think a lot about maybe a distance class, an online course you may take, but I think technology even more broad than that, how's it going to affect how universities operate, the role we serve? Those are things I spent a lot of time thinking about during my time at the Innovation Lab. And it was about 18 months ago that I got a call, and it's a voice that's very familiar to people here in Boise, that of President Custra. And he had introduced himself and said, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this idea and this concept that I have and am promoting here in Boise at Boise State is a new college. We're going to form a new college called the College of Innovation and Design. And this is about leveraging the speed, decision-making, and collaboration of a startup to unlock and reimagine how we as a university do our research, teaching, and learning, with an eye towards where do our students benefit and where is there an opportunity for them as they step into the emerging workplace needs of tomorrow. And if I really had to summarize it, I'd say it's about relevant education. I don't want our students, our graduates here, or graduates at any other institution to step into a place where your course of study didn't position you for the next step that you choose vocationally. And that's a real passion. When you now come back to the first part of the question, I'm a career where I've spent passionately about unlocking opportunity, and some of that's been in higher ed where I am today. Others have been in other industries. But higher ed married with my passion for this opportunity in the university setting to address relevant education made this a real special opportunity. Boise State in particular, though, you may know, and many people here in the community know, this is a university that's been on the move. That's the language we use here. And it's a place that's very much about making history. We're very comfortable that the next 10 years might lead this university to another place that we all presume is better and more reflective of a university that's making progress. And I like going to places that are trying to make history. And I think there's a lot of places that either trying to, not even thinking about how they're going to make history, or in other cases, they're more revering the history that they've benefited from. And so I couldn't think of a better place to come than here and to be the inaugural dean of the College of Innovation and Design.
That's great. And you were actually interviewed for a New York Times article titled University's Race to Nurture Startup Founders of the Future. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, so the author of the piece had reached out to me because she had noticed a number of universities making very deliberate and explicit initiatives to try to promote entrepreneurship or innovation. And those are really kind of two cousins to each other, and I won't get into all the details right here, but she was writing an article saying, hey, is this a fad? Is this a phenomenon? Let's dimensionalize what's going on here. And in my work at the Harvard Innovation Lab, I've had the privilege of seeing dozens, I would actually get into the low hundreds of universities that have actually been coming to study what was happening at the Harvard Innovation Lab as they were formulating initiatives they were going to do on their local campuses. And so she was curious, hey, what do I make of this phenomenon? How do I contextualize it? And I think that the short version of my message was, I think that there are some universities that are thinking about how do we embrace this and really bring the idea that any student can come and access as part of their education the ability to apply the ideas you're learning in the classroom. There are others that I think are less informed on what's going on, and they just see that their alumni are asking, or people are wondering, or they think it's a trend they should get on, and it's not clear to me that their designs are going to be effective, and they're more maybe setting up some space. They're calling it something very special, but it's not clear to me students are coming in and getting transformational learning. Whether that's for credit or not is irrelevant. I think they're sort of more the pretender class, and that was some of my the remarks I had shared. The nice thing is, I think at Harvard and here at Boise State with our venture college and other initiatives that are going on, we are a place where you can come and I think both learn but also do as part of your learning.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke of the venture college, which helps students to, it helps them be more competitive in a job market that's extremely competitive right now. Can you tell me a little more about that and why it's so important to students?
Well, I think today, our students, it's important that we're in a competitive and a globally competitive environment. And I don't care whether we live in Boise, in Boston, or in Berkeley. Fundamentally, we are competing to be relevant in a global economy, in a global world. And the pace of that change is quick. There's individuals who are competing for jobs all around the world. I think that part of an education should involve the ability to apply the ideas that you're learning. Venture college, to me, is one forum and a real special forum where a student at Boise State can come. It's a co-curricular, which means non-credit. It's an environment where you can come in with any idea. It may have been a project that you had worked on as part of a course you'd taken. It could be an existing relationship you have, either within your family, an idea that you have, but you can come and access resources, develop your own skills in the pursuit of that idea, taking it as far as it can go. But it's extremely self-motivated, and I believe extremely special. You're learning about how to be creative in your problem solving, tenacious in pursuing the idea because nobody's making you do it. Adaptive, there's instances where you're going to find that idea has to change. A subset of people will actually vocationally run with that idea. They may actually be the future Albertsons or Microns of the world, to think of a Boise economy. But many of them will actually go on and be employees somewhere else, whether it be in city government, teachers. They could work in other jobs as well, where you're going to find that skill set by learning, by doing. it's almost like what I would say happens here in the university setting with television programs like this. Someday I expect to maybe see you on NBC Today show, but you can say with confidence, I've hosted programs, I've spoken to people who have different levels of expertise, rather than saying, many students today don't have that opportunity. They sit in a classroom, they may practice on an iPhone in their own bedroom, but they aren't sitting in an arena that's more immersive and more realistic to what they'll experience. That's what a venture college offers. We've had over 500 students participate this year, and I would be telling you, my goal is that that's something I see thousands of students having the opportunity to participate in building their skills.
That's great. And on that note, there's a program called Idaho Entrepreneur Challenge, and that gives students the opportunity to compete with their small businesses and earn funds for their businesses. Can you tell me, are there some success stories that have come out of that?
Yeah, so venture college to me, I was very deliberate, is about innovators from any background. I've seen musicians in my past come in who want to solve problems like, how do I practice with the orchestra at home at night? And they come back to me with interesting ideas, and to individuals in education, to you name the field, science, technology. So venture college is about activating innovators. The Idaho Entrepreneurship Challenge is very specific to a subset of folks who are innovators saying, hey, I vocationally want to try to run with this idea. I've got a solution to a problem where I think there's people who would be excited by this solution. That doesn't also mean they aren't socially minded. There's a number of social and cultural impact-oriented ventures out there, and that participated. And this year, we had the opportunity to see this challenge is a statewide initiative. Student ventures and ideas can come from any of our universities here in Idaho. They come and they benefit from networking, from feedback, as well as they have $100,000 of prize money to nurture their further development. But in those ideas, we had health and healthy living, we had agriculture and agricultural technology, we had technology, services, consumer products, as well as social and cultural impact. Some of the ideas I think of, one was one of the grand prize winners was a group out of Boise State called Herd Technology. Using Wi-Fi and cellular technology, we know 77% of our ranchers are in coverage for cellular and or Wi-Fi coverage. Technology that can go on your herd. I assume it was in their ears, but I don't know where the cows would have this, but it can real-time tell ranchers where their cows are. It minimizes, my understanding is 10%. You can expect up to 10% loss as a cattle rancher. And the ability now to know where calf and mother are separated, that prevents rapid growth of weight, which is important when you're in that line of work. Where your cows are so you're not losing them. You understand if they're not moving, it alerts you. That kind of ingenuity comes from a team from all different backgrounds. Another one is a wonderful example is Shaw Mountain Technology. It's micro-sized pumps. It's almost like you're building muscles into materials. So now you're able to actually control the movement. Almost think of how your throat swallows was sort of how it was told to me. Think of the peristalsis, your muscles, sort of the waves going down as it takes food to your stomach. They can do that now with materials.
Wow.
And that can allow you at either micro levels or for the purposes where that's beneficial, it reduces some of the very intricate workings of a machine that might break down or wear down. And that's coming from our research laboratories here at Boise State. That's Dr. Peter Molnar in our material science, who had students saying, I want to take and run with this. They found those resources here and were able to come in. They were our first place winners in some of our technology. But there's other students from other parts of the state. I've seen gun safety technology using trigger locks that are biometric feedback that require the user but are portable and solve certain problems. I've had a wonderful team from the University of Idaho talk about bringing micro farms to urban backyards where you can hire someone to come in for a month, once a month, to tend your micro farm. Think about farm to table. We love Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or places of fresh produce in our grocery stores. Not everybody is a farmer, and yet all of us, I think, love the idea of getting fresh produce, and that's a service that can be brought to our metropolitan areas. So I could go on, but the idea is that entrepreneurship and innovation is alive and well in Idaho. We had 75 teams, and it really made me, I'm coming from a place where I've seen in the Boston or San Francisco or Austin markets, thousands of innovators, and yet I know it happens here too. And it was really a special experience. And we had judges from around the country who were here looking at those teams and said the same thing.
Wow. That's so important. And for students who may not have a background yet in technology, they can enroll in a summer of technology course and learn about new things such as building new mobile apps or learning how to code. Why do you think it's so important, even if they're not necessarily going into that field, to learn about those things?
Well, I think it's important to, first of all, I want to be clear, the College of Innovation and Design that I'm overseeing, this is about looking at where do we unlock the opportunity for relevant education. What does that look like with some of our faculty and the development of new majors that can open up fields, for instance, our gaming, interactive media, mobile technology, which maybe we'll talk about later, is one area where it's a course of study. There's also a whole suite of things that we offer that can allow students who are majoring in anything, whether it be history, chemistry, you go down the list. We believe there's also value to allow students to attach to their course of study experiences that may more perfectly represent your interests or your skills or your competencies. So in this case, this summer, we have a number of what we call short courses that allow students, in this case, they are technology centered around developing the basic proficiency, but proficiency you can use in certain programming languages. So Ruby on Rails, we have a mobile web development and the database management, which is a partnership we have with Dr. Tim Anderson and the computer science department here at Boise State to unlock for students during the summer when you may have some more flexibility in your curriculum, the ability to take these short courses. And in fact, they even happen at night, so you can be working in the summer as well.
Wow.
To be able to pick these up. So we think learning happens year-round, and this is one example.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, the Gaming, Interactive Media, and Mobile Technology program is a great program, so if students find out that they are interested in that, then they can enroll in that. And could you talk a little more about that?
Sure. So the Gaming, Interactive Media, Mobile Technology major, we call it GIMS, so I may reference it as GIM. This is a great example where it's our faculty who are really the stars here. We're interested in faculty who want to work across disciplinary boundaries. We have great colleges here at Boise State, and my colleagues and the other colleges, I would say there's a lot of interesting innovations going on inside those disciplines. So if you had education and education technology wanting to combine for a new major, that's terrific. Dean Osgathorpe would have a terrific opportunity to address that. We step in where there's disciplinary boundaries that are crossing the disciplines that might normally organize around a college. So GIM is a perfect example where the underpinning disciplines of that is art, psychology, and computer science. But it's also married up to the reality that we realize the future is about individuals who can bridge technology to everyday items and the world around us. And so when I say gaming, most folks here in the university community understand, but some of the listeners may be more thinking about someone sitting on a couch playing a game. That's the very narrow interpretation of what this major equips our students and our graduates to do. It's really the ability to work in a technology-enabled, immersive world that's going to be everywhere. Nurses will be training in how they prepare for, you name any number of procedures. You're going to find that we're able to train more nurses at lower cost and still get them the experience they need in things like virtual reality, Oculus Rift goggles, immersive experiences, gloves on, and they can see themselves as they do procedures, or surgeons. We have very expensive equipment that often not everybody who's interested can practice on. The immersive arena of a virtual reality world can allow for that. Let me give you a couple other examples. We have industry, we have some of the transportation industry in saying, hey, the future of our industry in the West, certainly the western part of the US, is going to be what they call driverless truck trains. Wow. You're going to see 15, 18, 20 of these 18-wheelers strung together, not even driven by a person. They're almost like, the analogy would be an autopilot of a plane. Wow. Somebody will be in that cockpit up front, but that will be driving itself from, figuratively speaking, Spokane to Minneapolis. Interstate 90, that will just be running. And whether that's scary or not now, someday we may look back and chuckle because it'll feel normal. But the question that they've come to Dr. Ellertson, who oversees the GIM program, is where can we develop training for these individuals who are in that version of a cockpit? And also, what do we do to keep them alert? because there will be times when they have to take that truck train off of autopilot. And what are we doing while they're spending that time in the cabin? And that's a project that our GIMS students are able to be focused on and working against. Wildlife, our interagency wildlife firefighting group here is exploring opportunities. Public safety, Boise City Fire. Goes down the list in terms of arenas in which this skill set will put our students at a place that's marrying up disciplines that traditionally wouldn't be collaborating or wouldn't find the time or the ability. This college I'm overseeing can offer the arena where we can validate that and then offer it back out to the university as we move on to other ideas. And I've got a number of other things we're working on with other faculty that'll be just as special, but will represent different combinations of disciplines.
Right, and you mentioned faculty working in research, and the Human Environmental Systems Center brings together faculty, staff, and students to work together to do research. Why do you think that's so important for students to get an experience while they're still in school researching alongside with faculty and staff?
Well, again, this is a college, the College of Innovation and Design, that's about piloting various solutions, we believe, to issues that unlock opportunity in the university. One of those, the Human Environmental Systems faculty group, is really representing a new model for sponsoring faculty groups. Your traditional faculty will organize around the discipline of their study. And human environmental systems as a field is about different disciplines collaborating to look at how humans interact with their environment. So if you've ever read the book Guns, Germs, and Steel, or I've seen a number of other media, I happened to see a television production detailing the history of Easter Island. Mm-hmm. And if you know anything about the history of Easter Island, not that I expect anybody watching to necessarily have studied that, but these are my interests. There was at one time a vibrant ecology and environment on Easter Island. Today it's fairly barren, I'm told, as I understand from this information. And what human environmental scientists have realized is that what happened is over several centuries, the interaction, there were forests at one time, eventually deforestation took place and it went below a threshold of recovery. And yet the environment there was not set up in order to actually work to have a human population there adapt to the next thing they could be looking at. And what happened was an implosion of this society. And human environmental systems scientists would be looking at that interaction. We have Dr. Nancy Glenn and Sean Benner oversee this program, but I'm thinking about Dr. Neil Carter is one of the new faculty members here at Boise State in that group, who's looking at the interaction between various animals and humans. And Idaho is a wonderful environment to be looking at that because we have such natural beauty and natural resources, and yet we have a high growth population. And where does that interaction take place? So whether that be wolves and human interaction, whether that be other, today looking at the involvement of animals interacting in the evening across these boundary zones where human population and these animals exist is a very fertile ground to be studying. But what we're doing is giving those faculty the opportunity to grow up and mature and ultimately receive tenure as a group. Mm-hmm. Because Dr. Carter may come from one area of study, biology, let's say, and it may not be his area of study. Someone else may come from statistics. Someone else may come from another area, analytics. Those groups typically to receive tenure would have to go back to their discipline, and what happens there is it breaks apart the need that this group has for those folks to stay together. And so Boise State's taking the lead on thinking about how do we actually create an environment where those groups can come up, and that's what makes that special. There's a different area as well for students as well. So some students may work with those faculty, but we offer a program that's related called vertically integrated projects. That is where the promise of a research university for a student, the whole reason we have research happening next to teaching is the idea that the original knowledge creation that's happening by our bright faculty will find a way into the classroom more quickly than if they existed apart from each other, research and teaching. And what vertically integrated projects is saying, it's not always clear that that's happening as well as it should. And so vertically integrated projects we are a node in a national network of universities led by Associate Dean Will Hughes. Dr. Hughes, who's also a materials scientist here, is leading this initiative where we have faculty with research labs who are inviting students to come into courses that may last a year, year and a half, as they work on problems of importance that lab and a partner out in society have partnered to address. So we have a shelter project going on, which is looking at low-cost habitable structures. But that's not just a design issue. That faculty member also needs students from our public safety, from marketing, from, you go down the list, education, because if you're going to be creating low-cost habitable structures, presumably they're happening in either refugee zones or areas of population migration. You have to create small cities. You can't just drop a structure in, right? You have to think about, how do we create society? How do we create safety? How do we create meaningful life while that's happening? And the purpose of a vertically integrated project is to give students this hands-on experience up close to the research that's happening, that's cutting edge, that often you don't always get access to, certainly in your public higher ed universities. So it's a real special experience, and it's something we're very excited about in the College of Innovation and Design.
That is exciting, and we just have a couple more minutes, so I want to ask one more question. The Certificate in Leadership and Human Relations is a program that is open to all majors, again, which is great. And why do you think that's so helpful for students to have, even if they aren't in this college, to have that certificate?
Well, I think, again, it's this theme of where do you attach meaningful, relevant learning or skills that can come alongside any area of study. I believe that I myself come from a liberal arts background. I think that there is a real special experience that comes when you have the chance to study in various disciplines, liberal arts one as well. Leadership is in this theme of, much like our Bridge to Career elective classes, that's more substantive, and it's Dr. Heidi Reeder, who was a Carnegie Foundation Teacher of the Year several years back here in Idaho. Very special faculty member who's done research in leadership, who realizes we have a crisis of leadership. Many of us coming out of this university, our graduates, may expect meaningful employment, but it doesn't mean we understand how to work with people. And what does leadership look like? Different than management. And it's different than directing individuals. It's about, how do you connect to people and understand what motivates individuals? And that's a skill set. That's not something you're either just born with, you have, or you don't. And Dr. Heidi Reeder really unpackages that, and it's kind of a universal toolbox that you can bring with you no matter what you're doing. Related is our Bridge to Career classes. It's the idea that students can pick from an a la carte menu of electives that are professional skills you'll develop that comes alongside your major. And that's going to give you a leg up in either your vocational move of choice or being distinctive in the role that any of our students graduate into. Because, hey, you may have 100 education majors, but your basics of coding class that you took, or the professional life skills class that you took, really more perfectly represents your interest in being an education technologist. Instead of saying I'm one of 100 majors, I'm actually one of one, because I can speak to exactly what I did. And I think that's the world we're moving in, a technology-enabled world.
Great, Gordon. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
You know, first of all, I appreciate being on this program. Anna, you've been wonderful. I would just say that I believe that the story of Boise and Boise State University is really a bright one. This is a university, it's also a community and a state that's on the move, and I think many folks may not be aware of that story, and so my hope is that this program helps spread that word, so thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for tuning into University Television Presents. I'm Anna Silver, your host, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.